You played at UC Santa Barbara. Can you talk about the impact of that?
Hmm.
4-year starter, one of their best players. Just that whole experience and how much you grew during that time.
Right. I think two things out of my experience at UC Santa Barbara. One is I learned to be a builder there. Before I got there, they were, oh, and it wasn't me. There was a class before me that really started the ball rolling. But Mark French was the head coach, and I was a part of his second recruiting class. But before he took over, they were 0-18 in the Big West. And at that time, there wasn't Power Four or Power Five conferences. There was just Division 1. And he was like, we were really, the Big West was really amazing. Long Beach State had won the national championship. It was just a different era in how Division 1 sports were run. But he taught me how to have vision and be a builder, because he built that program and I got to be a part of that, which was just an incredible honor. And then the second thing I learned from being at under Mark French is he was really big on habits of excellence, Stephen, the Covey principles. And he would be in middle of practice and be like, hey, I understand you were up all night studying for a final, but you're going to be, a doctor, a lawyer, and you're going to be up all night with one of your kids. And how are you going to learn to be excellent even when things are hard? And he just would always talk about the habits of excellence. And I mean, you can hear it from me, is that this is 33 years later and I can recite it like it was yesterday. And so I would say that I learned how to build vision and to be a builder. And then I learned how to truly make basketball a life equipping tool from Mark French at UC Santa Barbara. And then I got to go back and coach under him for 9 years as well. And I just am really thankful to have been influenced by a great man first and great coach second.
It's so interesting as you talk. I mean, these influencers are so impactful on you. And like you
Mhm.
said, I mean, you can just recite so many of the things that they shared with you a number of years ago. One thing that struck me was a quote that I read about your dad saying, it's less about building a team and more about building a program. And then it sounds like Mark French had a similar idea there. Were those
Yeah.
some big takeaways when you became a head coach?
Absolutely. And, UCLA is my first head coaching job. I was an assistant coach for 18 years. And, this is, I had a lot of growing to do. I made a lot of mistakes. But the one thing I was very clear on when I got my first opportunity is that building a team was just not an option. It's too shallow. It's too short lived. I just didn't believe in it. So if I was going to give all this time and I was going to really invest in something that I believed in and building a program. And then I remember I read a book by Andy Stanley, talking about making visions stick. And he was talking about, in his world, it was leading a church. But he would say, I lived in Atlanta. You need another church on a corner, like you need, a hole in the head, right? There's just so many things. You don't need that. But he said, what am I uniquely designed to lead? How am I uniquely designed to lead? What is the problem that I'm uniquely designed to attack or to solve? And he talked about being a church that unchurched people love to attend. And that was his, and again, here I am 15 years later reciting that. And so I knew that I wanted to be, somebody who did it differently. And I came across Tony Dungy's book, Uncommon. And he started talking about his college coach at the University of Minnesota and the Uncommon program that he built. And that really became my mantra of uncommon, that we wanted uncommon women willing to make uncommon choices, yielding an uncommon result. And we wanted to teach, mentor, and equip for life beyond UCLA. And that just became what I wanted to do. And doing anything less than that just felt so empty. And I had this amazing experience this spring, Jason. I was speaking at the training camp with John Gordon, and I get onto the shuttle to go to the event. And who am I getting to sit next to? Tony Dungy. And I got to tell him for the first time the depth of that impact. It gets me choked up just thinking about it. But it was so impactful to me. But I just didn't want to be a coach that accumulated trophies or rings or whatever else. I just knew that was not me. And I wanted to build a program that you were going to hear about for years the way I heard Coach Wooden's alums get back to him. And he would say, I don't care how many points they scored or how much they won, but I care a lot when they say I'm a better father because of me being in that program. I care a lot when they say I'm more productive citizen because I played for you, coach. And I had this really powerful story my fourth day on the job from one of Coach Wooden's alumni, John Valley. And he just walked in and he said, I've been married 38 years because of what Coach Wooden taught me. I've started 3 successful businesses because of what Coach Wooden taught me. Conquered cancer 3 times because of the strength Coach Wooden gave me. And then he said, I survived the death of my 12-year-old daughter, Erin, because of the way Coach Wooden loved me. And then he walks out the door and says, I'll see you at Dribble for the Cure. Welcome back to UCLA. And I was like, who is this guy? And I ran over to the computer and I looked him up. And he was the starting guard on 2 of Coach Wooden's national championship teams. And he played 7 years in the NBA. But he didn't mention either because it paled in comparison to the
Sure.
man he became. And so I just said, how many uncommon John Valley stories can we create? And that's been the quest ever since.
Wow. I literally have the hair on the back of my neck
Mm, mm,
is I mean, it's amazing listening to you talk, and that's really what the coaches' missions are in life, right? When you
mm.
pull back, it's the impact they make on people, and you're clearly doing that.